Hello, fellow educators. How are you today? I hope everybody has something in their hand and are laying out in the sun or maybe the shade or maybe even cuddled up inside enjoying the cool. Whatever it is you are doing, you deserve it. And I am glad you have decided to join us here today. I am not going to waste your time. We are going to get right to it. My name is Kimberly Boust. Online, I'm known as the Literature Lady. I have been in education for over 25 years. All of those have been in upper elementary. I have a BS and an MED in elementary education. And my absolute favorite thing to do in the world is to connect a book to a child that will ignite their fire. I love to create lifelong readers. That is what I was known for in the classroom. That is why parents would want their children in my classroom so that I could help them match them up with books until we finally got one that lit their fire. This is my first year outside the classroom. And I decided that once I was outside the classroom, I wanted to do something that I had always wanted time to do while I taught in the classroom, but there just wasn't enough time. There are so many wonderful new books that are constantly being published, and it drove me crazy that the only way I really had time during the school year were to find these new books were to read them as read alouds, and then kind of cross my fingers and hope that I didn't run across anything that I needed to skip or kind of fix as I went along. And of course, then there were no resources to go with it. So now that I'm outside the classroom, that is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help get the information and give all those teachers out there shortcuts so that they can find the great books that they can implement in their classroom, know what the themes are, know where the teaching points are, know if there's any content warnings, and then create resources so that they can immediately put it in their classroom and not have to do any extra work. So if you are a literature lover like I am, but you just don't have enough time in the day, then this presentation is perfect for you. So without any further ado, let's start with number one. We're going to be doing an if this, then that presentation so that you can connect some of these new ones to some of the ones that we love. Okay, so our very first book is If You Loved Charlotte's Web, Then You Will Love The Eyes in the Impossible by Dave Eggers. The Eyes in the Impossible won the Newbery this year, and it deserved it. I will tell you as we go through this presentation, there are several books that I was extremely bummed about that didn't win the Newbery, but then I read this one and I get it. I totally get it. Now, Charlotte's Web, I still taught in my classroom up until the day I walked out of my classroom. So love Charlotte's Web. But if you're looking for some of those same themes, this is where the eyes and the impossible come into play. The basic summary of the story is Johannes is a dog that lives free in the park. He's very proud of that, that he's not a kept dog, not a pet. He serves as the eyes of the park and will roam the park and is very fast runner. And it reports back to the bison, Freya, Meredith, and Samuel, who are keepers of the equilibrium. They keep tabs on everything that's going on in the park to make sure that they keep the animals safe. Then things start happening in the park and changes are going on. And Johannes gets the great idea that he needs to save the bison who have lived in an enclosure their entire life. And then the rest is just this fantastic adventure story. You have the theme of friendship. You have the theme of creating a community of people, even when they're not family. You have rescue themes. And then you have, in this situation, just as you did with Charlotte's Web, talking about how humans and animals live in the world and how the animals might actually view us and the things that we do. There are no content warnings that go with this book, I don't think. It is great for ages 8 and up. It is 256 pages. Let me grab it for you right here. It has beautiful illustrations in it all the way throughout it. Beautiful double page illustrations. And as you can see here, it's not tiny print and it's more of a square book. If you look at some of the bigger books that you might have, has it a little bit different of a shape. And I think that children will enjoy it. I think third grade and up, all of them could read it. It would be a fantastic read aloud for third grade. It'd be a fantastic read aloud for anyone. 256 pages. And The Eyes and the Impossible. It was released in 2023. You gotta get this in your classroom. Got to get this in your classroom. Okay. All right. Next. If you love the BFG, then you have to go for The Ogress and the Orphans. I love Kelly Barnhill, and I love this book in particular. It has like, just like the BFG with the big friendly giant, it's got this ogress in it. There are two different stories going on. It's the story of an orphanage and the children that are in the orphanage, and then the story of the ogress. And then the two stories merge when one of the children goes missing. And of course, people in the village are going to blame the ogress. So it is just interwoven, and you have the ogress you can get connected to, you have the children you can get connected to. It has themes of being an outsider, both the orphans and the ogress, good versus evil, about don't judge a book by its cover type of theme. And then of course it also has the theme of having a group of friends that you can consider family. It is longer. It's 416 pages, and it's not small. It is a full 416 pages. Beautiful cover, right? No illustrations or anything. So straight up 416. So read aloud for third grade. And then starting with in fourth grade, your stronger readers in fourth grade could tackle it. I would love to have done this as a class novel in fifth or sixth grade. It would have been fantastic. The content warnings in Common Sense Media say 10 and up because of the folklore violence. You have to think about things like at one point they talk about how someone used the skin of a dragon to like killed a dragon, took the skin off, and they used the skin of the dragon to cover them and hide their identity. Things of that nature. So it's folklore violence is kind of how I came about to describe that. So things that you would read about in folklores or folk tales, but nothing that is happening to those orphans or to anyone that the children could relate to, only in a folklore type of situation. So I would have no problems picking this up and reading this to third grade at all. All right, ready for the next one? Okay, how many of you loved Narnia? Of course, can we even count how many readers have been created from the Narnia Chronicles, the Chronicles of Narnia? I mean, endless. The Land of Roar is a little bit older, but I like giving it its due because I don't think it ever fully got it, at least not in my circle. So this was published in 2019. Since then, it has had multiple books come out in the series. This is a book that I started off reading as a read aloud in my class. Then the kids would end up taking it from me or immediately wanted the second or the third one, and they would pass them around my room. And so my teammates and I started talking, we were like, you know what, I think we need to move this to a class book. And that's what we did. We moved it to a class book, and it is bigger. It's 320 pages. It's probably the biggest book I've ever tackled as a class book. The kids absolutely loved it, devoured it. And I can honestly say this book turned some of my boys onto reading like no other book. Boys that were reading Bad Guys and Stink and things like that, all of a sudden were taking home Land of Roar. It is not 8 and up. Same thing kind of as there's not as much violence, but there's a little bit of scariness when it comes to the scenes. Let me back up and give you a quick little summary of it. There's twins, Arthur and Rose, and when they were younger and would visit their grandfather, they had this imaginary land of Roar that they would play games in. And as they got older, they had kind of forgotten about it. But then Granddad goes missing, and they have to reconsider that maybe Roar was actually real. So then you get to go into this world, just like you do in Narnia, this whole new imagined world, and it's just beautiful, and it's exciting, and it's right on their level. It's perfect. So I hope if you don't add it to your class novels or your read alouds, at least make sure you get this and the other books from the series into your class library. Okay, Land of Roar by Jenny McLaughlin. Next up, the one and only Ivan. And we all know, do not stop teaching the one and only Ivan or all the books that have followed. And I'm recording this on May 7th. So, or actually May 8th. So I'm like waiting anxiously for my one and only Ivan to arrive on one and only family to arrive on my doorstep so that I can read the final installment of this series. I can't wait and love it. But Catherine Applegate has now written a new one named Otter that you're going to fall in love with just as well. She does the same thing. She pulls you into these animals, and through their storytelling, you actually you become a protector of this animal, and you so desperately want to hear more about their story. This is Otter Pup Otter, who lives in the Monterey Bay in California. And the story follows her life as she tries to survive in the wild and then also tries to survive in captivity. It's told in verse. Let me see if I can grab it for you. It's told in verse. Okay. And it has a jumping timeline, but very easy for the children to follow. Anybody third grade through sixth grade could be reading this. It's 288 pages, but again, it's in verse. It's a very fast little read, but it's a beautiful, beautiful story. The only content warning is there are wildlife deaths of family members. Nothing gruesome, nothing terrible, but you do have to experience the loss. And it is just a part of the story, as it is with wildlife, but the focus of the story is otter and survival and adaptation to your situation and friendship and growing up and learning each step of the way, and what it means to grow and change. So absolutely adore this book. It was from 2022. Okay. If you're going to read this or read it aloud or just put it in your library, know that the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is part of the story, has a YouTube channel, and they actually put the otters on there playing on their YouTube channel, and it's fantastic to watch. My husband is a pediatrician, and he puts that on in the waiting rooms for the kids to watch, and they adore it. So, Otter by Catherine Applegate. So, what is up next? Kate DiCamillo, who is like queen of literature, right? Because of Winn-Dixie. Then you have Dogtown by, again, Catherine Applegate and Jennifer Choldenko. And this sweet book right here, it's not that the story is similar to Because of Winn-Dixie, because this is all told from animals' point of view, and you really don't get to know humans, okay? But it's the feeling that it gives off, and this feeling of unwanted dogs and unwanted pets. So the summary is that Chance, this cute little buddy right here on the front, has 3 legs, and he lives in Dogtown, the animal shelter. And the staff and the volunteers are lovely and friendly and kind. He meets a mouse and a robot dog there. And all of a sudden, he is left to unravel the mystery as to how he ended up in this animal shelter to begin with. It's 352 pages, but the writing is rather large. It is what I would consider a not as big as like Land of Roar, which was in the 300s. Okay. And it has a few illustrations along the way. Really adorable little illustrations. So the biggest trigger warning here is that it does refer to euthanasia. It doesn't use the word. It talks about the dogs being on the list, and then it does cover what being on the list means. And so if you feel like that is something that your students cannot handle, then by all means, you would need to be careful with that. But as I said, I read Charlotte's Web to my kids, or I didn't read it to them. They read it as a class novel, and that deals with similar themes there, and they never had an issue with it. So I love this, and you're gonna love Chance, and oh, the ending just gives you warm fuzzies. So fun little friendship. How to not judge a book by its cover again. how to be loyal as a friend. And Robot Dog is not very lovable at the beginning. So we get to watch that friendship unfold. Dogtown. That's going to be a series, by the way. Dogtown 2 is coming out here soon. Next, if you loved Roald Dahl and Matilda and the spunk of this girl that is not going to allow her parents to put her in a corner, aka Dirty Dancing, then you're going to love Leave It at Last by Sarah Pennypacker. Okay. Sarah Pennypacker is from the Clementine series. Of course, lots of other books, but if that helps give you a reference. Do we need to go outside? Okay, let's go outside. Leva is a girl who has been treated like a prisoner since she was born. Her mom is the town mayor, only cares about power and fame. Her father is the town treasurer, only cares about money. And they have lied to her and kept her locked up and not treated her well. And that is the content warning. I didn't write it down, so make sure you take a little note there. She is not treated well, just like in Matilda, talked too poorly. You talked about not feeding her well, keeping her locked in a room, things of that nature. So you need to be aware of that. But boy, if you want a spunky child that has to now figure out how to face her parents now that she realizes that she has had so many things hidden from her and they have lied to her. So I don't have a copy of it right here with me, but it's 320 pages like Dogtown. It's a little bit bigger words and a little bit easier to read. It is great for all grades. Okay, 3 through 6. And that was just released last year in 2023. So then we come to Beezus and Ramona. The entire Ramona series, I know that if you're a younger teacher, maybe you weren't as attached to it as I was as a youngster because I read them when I was younger. But Katie Camillo's newest book, Ferris, that just came out, really reminds me of this feeling that you got when you read the Ramona books. So to be clear, Ferris, who is the girl right there on front, is the Beezus of the story. She is not the Ramona, the little sister Pinky, who is hell on wheels. That is the Ramona. The story is about Ferris, whose real name is Emma Phineas Wilkie, who is the summer before her 5th grade year. And it really follows her family through that summer and kind of what her family was going through. Her best friend is Billy Jackson, and he's there with her the entire way. There is a grandmother, an aunt, and an uncle, and of course, the little sister, and a mom and a dad, and a dog, of course. You got to have the dog. Grandmother's not feeling well. Grandmother has seen a ghost. Ferris is having to deal with the fact that Pinky is hell on wheels, and we kind of get to watch her grow up during this story, and it's a kind of big summer of growth. But this is really the story is about family, and I've seen a lot of reviews and a lot of people mention the fact that there's a ghost in the story. And let me just say that the ghost is tiny in the story. The ghost is a catalyst for the plot, but is not really what the story is about. The family and the different family members are what the story is about. So so be aware that yes, a ghost is mentioned. Yes, we get to hear about a ghost being there, but it is not a highlight of the story. Now, there are death of loved ones. Her friend Billy Jackson, it does mention that his mom passed away while giving birth to him. And then there's another death in the family, which I feel like is handled extremely well, to the point that I did not cry when it happened. And I cry all the time when I'm reading books aloud to children. So I felt like it prepared us, and then it also it had a positive spin on it. So it's 240. It's kind of a smaller book to hold, which I think the younger children will like. It is an easy, good read, and it has lots of strong vocabulary in it. You can turn this into just solely a vocabulary study while you read if you want. Otherwise, I would be looking at family and growth themes and what you will do for a loved one. All right. Okay. Next. So Boxcar Children, and I know that's way old, but believe it or not, I still had children that read the Boxcar books. I think their parents give it to them, and then some of them fall in love with it and they read a lot of them. But if you like that kind of story, then The Midnight Children is for you. And I'm going to make sure I pronounce Dan's name correctly. It's Gemeinhart, Dan Gemeinhart. Coyote Sunrise is also his books, and I love the Coyote Sunrise books. But The Midnight Children kind of flew under the radar a couple of years ago, and I didn't hear as much about it. It was published in 2022, and I read it aloud to my third graders that year, and they loved it. It put them on edge. It was a little it had a lot of suspense in it, but they enjoyed it. It felt like, I think it felt like a big kid book to them. So this basic story is that no one ever comes to Slaughterville until all of a sudden, one night in the middle of the night, 7 children appear in a house across the street from Ravani. Ravani is a 12-year-old boy that is bullied relentless and has no friends. So, of course, he is extremely excited to make friends with these new 7 children that live across the street from him. But then everything starts unraveling, and he realizes that these 7 children don't have parents, and that there's someone called a hunter that is tracking them down. Now, this hunter, you just need to know, is not someone that is looking to harm them, but it is part of the story. On Common Sense Media, it makes a big deal about the fact that there's a lot of bullying, and people say that they don't like it because it's a lot of rude language and bullying and things that go on in the book. But that's why I like it. It is very realistic. Ravani is bullied. They are not nice to him, but, and that's real life, right? Like we know that goes on as much as we try to stop it. But the story is how friends can give you the confidence to stand up to these bullies, and how his friends rally around him and make sure that he's not bullied in the future. And then it also gives us a little insight into these bullies and why people bully. But there is, I think, one damn in the book, and then a couple of hecks or heck no's or things like that that would make you think that it's a curse word, but it's not. And then the children are abandoned, so they are from an orphanage. That is part of the story. I'm sorry I'm giving that away, but I think you kind of need to know that going in, that once you start reading it, don't get scared that there's something else afoot. That's all it is. It's 352. It's a rather big book, but like I said, I read it aloud to my third graders. They loved it. It would be great for all the above, especially if you're in those 5th, 6th grade classes and you're starting to have a little problems with those kids. And they're being nice to one another in their groups, like that happens. It would be a perfect book. Next, we have If You Loved When You Reach Me by Rebecca Steed. Then you're going to love The First State of Being. And I'm so excited because I just saw today that The First State of Being is on the kind of the short list for Newbery for this year, and that made me super happy. But When You Reach Me was a kind of a mysterious feel to the book, and so is The First State of Being. Now, I'm not giving anything away, because if you read the back of the book, it's going to tell you it is a time travel story, and it's done super well. I was very nervous about that, but Erin Entrada Kelly nails it. It is in 1999, and if you lived in, well, of course you lived in 1999, but if you remember 1999, then you will have some fun memories as you hear the music. They talk about the clothing, things of that nature. It's kind of fun to hear that part of it. It's 12-year-old Michael. and his babysitter, Gibby, that he has a little crush on, live in an apartment complex, and they run into a stranger named Ridge, who is also a teenager. They try to help Ridge get back home when he has to spill the beans that, well, I'm from the year 2199. So the time travel story is fantastic, and I love it. But the story of Michael is even better. Michael has major anxiety and OCD, and it is not named. It is not called out. We get to see it. She shows it, and you can feel it. And so kids that struggle with that, oh, I don't know where my book is. There it is. They are going to really uh, become attached to Michael. And so I love that she pulled this in because so many of our students, especially post-COVID, struggle with anxieties and OCDs, and she handles it in such a beautiful way. So the first state of being, I got it as soon as it came out, which it did just a few months ago, and read it like in a day. It was amazing. Next, the Swifts. That was on one of my short lists for the year for Newbery, and it did not win, but it's a funky combination. I kept trying to think of a book, and I was like, it's not a book that it reminds me of. It really reminds me of the Addams Family and Clue. It's a whodunit with a crazy family. I almost said another bad word, but you know what I meant. A crazy family. The Swifts. Beth Lincoln. It's her debut novel. She studies words, and that is shown through the book. So all of these family members have crazy names, and your kids can learn some fun vocabulary as you go through it. But the story is about this very unusual family, the Swifts, who have an ancestor named Vile, who murdered his brother, and then took all the family wealth and buried it, and nobody knows where it is. And so every once in a while, they have a family reunion to see if they can't find the treasure, which is what they start doing, which is what happens in this book. But then all of a sudden, all these murders and mysteries start happening. So, content warning, there are murders in this book, but it really is honestly like handled like Clue and Addams Family. It's just so quirky and so like TV show like. It's not anything that feels traumatic. It's nothing that I wouldn't pick up and read to my third graders. So it's 352 pages, very similar to Midnight Children, First State of Being. Content warnings on it. This would not have been a book that would have been an issue in my school or reading it aloud to my third graders. But I know that some of you live in different states or teach in different atmospheres, and you'll need to know this. It has one mentioning of a same-sex couple, and it mentions it in this way. There's a brother and a sister, and it refers to them and says they have both had many ex-husbands. Okay, so it doesn't come right out and say it, but smart kids will start deducing that. Then you have a main character, Earth, who has chosen their name and chosen not to go by she or him. So the pronouns of they, them, and then having a new name comes up, and it is addressed and it is talked about in a wonderful way, not overly talked about, just that everybody has a right to decide what name they want to be called. And then of course the murders and the violence, but again, it is done kind of in a comical way. But I love this book. I can't wait for the second one to come out. It comes out this fall in 2024. I wish y'all could see my stack of books or climbing. That, I believe, is the end of the 10 books that I wanted to share with you. But of course, did I stop at 10? No, I could only come up with 10, and I made myself stop at 10. But then I kept making a list because I could not tell you more books that you need to go read or think about adding to your classroom library. A lot of these I have read, a lot of them I haven't because they haven't been published yet. But the first one is Carl Hyacin from Hoot. You may remember him. Lots of books. That's just one of them. It was written last year in 2023. It reminds me a lot of Holes. Love this book. Love this book. I would have read it aloud this year if I had been there. The Lost Library by Wendy Mass and Rebecca Steed. I probably would have definitely put this in my third grade as a class novel had I still been there. It's not very big. It has just over 200 pages, and it's a small book, so it's a quick read, but it's a little mystery that, wow, knocks it out of the park. I didn't solve it till later on in the book, so you know, you got to read it. People are, yeah, you got to read it. And it was also last year, 2023. And then Tree Table Book just came out by Lois Lowry. And I mean, like, just came out last week. It is about a little girl and her best friend who is an elderly lady that lives next to her. The elderly lady has dementia, and this little girl is trying to run tests by her to prove that she is safe to live by herself, and it doesn't go so well. So I would probably use this in my class if I knew that I had students that were going through this at home with grandparents, or would hand it to a child that I knew was experiencing this or was getting ready to experience this. I don't have Felix Powell Boy Dog, because it has not been released yet. Erin Entrada Kelly, who was the same as the First State of Being, she has been battling breast cancer. And while she was undergoing chemotherapy, she decided to start doing some doodles, and she ended up doodling Felix Powell Boy Dog and turned it into an entire book. So it was more of a smaller cartoon book. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. And if I can't, I believe it's on her Instagram, which you need to follow. If you don't follow her Instagram, you need to follow her. And Dan Gutman too, by the way. If you don't follow Dan Gutman, follow him. But you can sign up and prove to her that you pre-ordered her book, and then she will send you a poster that she has signed of one of the illustrations. So I can't wait for that to come. And then, of course, I already mentioned The One and Only Family by Katherine Applegate, which is coming out this week, or has been released this week. Orris and Timble, The Beginning by Kate DiCamillo, was just published last week, and it is a small little book. You can see it here. This would be a read aloud that would take you one day, maybe 2 days at the most. But it is about a friendship that shouldn't be. So you got an owl and a mouse, okay, kind of like the Lion and the Mouse. And I can tell that she's setting this up to be a series. You could do a lot of great lessons from this, though. And I am sure that the younger grades will use it as a reader, but this would be a great read aloud and some great work in your class, or just for fun. And then again, so I don't have the book. It's not being released until the fall. Bletchley Riddle. It's a World War II book by the ultimate in historical fiction, Ruta Sepetys. She wrote I Must Betray You. Gotta read it. I should have put it on the list, but I already had her on here once. But also has written so many Between Shades of Gray, Out of the Easy, Salt to the Sea. Is truly a phenomenal historical fiction writer, and I cannot wait to get my hand on Bletchley Riddle. So you need to check that out. I wonder why I don't have Labors of Hercules here. The Labors of Hercules was one of my other books last year that I was really disappointed. That one and The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh, that they did not get a nod at Newbery. The Labors of Hercules, if you teach Greek myths or even Roman myths in your class, then you should pick up that book and either read it along at the same time as a read aloud or make it a class novel. Gary Schmidt has this main character, Hercules, who has lost his parents. So there's a little bit of loss in the story. And through the story, it's not just random, but through the story, he ends up having to complete Labors of Hercules. So you read the story, the myth, and then you see it applied in real life. And it is such a human story about this boy that is struggling with the loss of his parents, is left with his older brother, and feels lost and alone. And we get to see him grow and find his strength just like Hercules did. It is a brilliant story. And you need to hand that to children if you're not going to put it in your classroom. The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh was also last year. It had a lot of buzz. A lot of people thought that it would be winning the Newbery. And I can see why. 2 reasons. Well, besides the fact that she's an incredible writer and it's an incredible story, but 2 things to point out. It is about Ukraine and in the 30s, when there was a lot of discrimination going on, and a lot of people had to flee because of political reasons. She wrote this. This is based partially on family, on her family. And when she was going through her final edits or sent it off for publication, right at the very end was the day that Russia invaded Ukraine. So she had no idea that the two worlds were going to collide, and she was writing a book that was going to be apropos to right now. It is also one of the first books that I have read about COVID. The whole thing is set in COVID, except for the flashbacks that are happening in Ukraine. So I love that our students that lived through COVID can now start reading about it. It's intricate and it's fabulous, and I didn't see the twist coming. Didn't see it coming. And then Boom by Lisa Phipps is coming out soon. Don't have it yet, hasn't been released, but Lisa Phipps is the author of Starfish. So I am sure it's going to be fantastic. The Wrong Way Home by Kate O'Shaughnessy is coming out this year, a historical fiction. Olivetti by Allie Millington is out. I haven't gotten it yet. Olivetti is a typewriter that is one of the characters in the story. You heard me right. The typewriter is one of the narratives of the story. Should be fascinating. Codename Kingfisher by Liz Kessler. If the name rings a bell, that is Emily Winsnap. That's who wrote that. So Codename Kingfisher. Haven't read it yet. Under the Waves by Linda Sue Park is also coming out this year. That is who wrote Long Walk to Water. Fantastic author. And then The Night War by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley is coming out, and it is another historical fiction. And of course, she wrote The War That Saved Me, and was very well acclaimed. I saw in Horn Book Magazine that Jella and Her Library of Dreams by Catherine Patterson, the same Catherine Patterson that wrote Bridge to Terabithia, is coming out this year. I can't find that anywhere else. I can't find a publication date, but I believe Horn Book. So have your radars out. It didn't say what it was about. So I am just anxiously awaiting. So that's all I got. That's all I got. I hope I didn't just overwhelm you. What I did do is I included at the end here is 2 printouts so that you can take them to the store or to the library so that you can pick those up instead of trying to take this entire packet that you've got notes on. Please, if you are interested in any of the supporting packets to go with these books, all 10 books, plus several of the ones on the additional list, I have created book packets that are complete comprehension packets. They have comprehension questions that go with every single chapter, and a mid-book quiz and an into the book assessment. They're on my TPT store. And I really hope that some of you guys are able to use those so you're not having to worry about teaching. You can just enjoy the book with the kids. As a little special thank you for listening and coming to my presentation, I will be putting all those book packets on sale from July 11th to July 15th only. It's not an advertised sale. You will just log on and they will be on sale for those days only. If the QR code is to my link tree, and from my link tree, you can find me everywhere, from Instagram to TikTok to my blog to my TPT store, my OutSchool store, my YouTube, whatever you want, you can find me there. I thought that might be the easiest if you just had access to my link tree. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you will find that I, from time to time, will also put out book reviews of new books so that I can help keep you guys up to date so you don't have to wait around for the summertime to get caught up. So click on any of the links to connect to me. And then, of course, there are your pages there at the end. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for joining us on the Upper Elementary Simplified Conference. I hope that you learn lots and enjoy your summer. You deserve the break. Thank you for fighting the good fight. See ya.